The scariest part of obsession is that it feels like a choice until it doesn't. A thought you keep returning to, a person you keep checking on, a goal you tell yourself is just ambition, a memory you replay again and again, looking for something you missed. And in the beginning, nobody calls it obsession. They call it focus. They call it love. They call it drive. They call it wanting something badly enough. But obsession has a strange way of disguising itself. It does not usually arrive as madness. It arrives quietly, as curiosity, as attention, as a little extra thought you cannot seem to put down. And by the time you realize it has taken over, it may already be making decisions for you. Because the most dangerous obsessions are not the ones that look insane from the outside. They are the ones that feel completely justified from the inside. In this video, we are going through the 7 levels of obsession. And the final level is where the truth becomes uncomfortable. Because by the end, the question is no longer what you are obsessed with. The question is what the obsession has turned you into. Level 1, the spark. Every obsession begins with a moment of attention. Something catches the mind. A face, a message, a dream, a mistake, a possibility. It does not feel dangerous yet. It feels interesting, maybe even exciting. There's a small charge around it, like the mind has found something it wants to keep touching. You think about it once, then again, then again. And each time, it feels like you are choosing to think about it. That is what makes the first level so easy to miss. At this stage, obsession does not feel like a trap. It feels like meaning. You tell yourself, this matters. This person matters. This opportunity matters. This version of my life matters. And maybe it does. Not every strong interest becomes obsession. Not every desire is unhealthy. The problem begins when the spark stops being something you notice and starts becoming something you need. Because once the mind attaches emotion to an idea, it begins to protect it. It begins to feed it. It begins to search for reasons to keep it alive. And that is when the spark becomes a loop. Level 2, the loop. At level 2, the obsession starts repeating itself. Not loudly, not constantly at first, just enough to keep returning. You are working, but part of your mind is somewhere else. You are talking to someone, but underneath the conversation, the same thought is still moving. You are trying to sleep, but your brain opens the same folder again. What if? Why did that happen? What does it mean? What if I lose it? What if I get it? What if I am not enough? The loop is powerful because it gives the illusion of progress. It feels like thinking is doing something. It feels like if you replay it one more time, you might finally understand. If you check one more thing, you might finally feel calm. If you imagine one more outcome, you might finally feel prepared. But the loop does not bring peace. It creates hunger. Because every answer creates another question. Every memory creates another angle. Every small sign becomes evidence. And slowly, the mind starts building a world around one thing. That is when obsession becomes more than a thought. It becomes a place you keep returning to. And the more often you return, the more familiar it feels. The more familiar it feels, the more real it becomes. Until eventually, ordinary life starts to feel like the interruption. And the obsession starts to feel like the truth. Level 3, the chase. At level 3, obsession moves from the mind into behavior. You do not just think about it anymore. You start acting around it. You check the phone more often. You search for updates. You revisit old conversations. You study patterns that may not even exist. You change your schedule. You adjust your personality. You begin arranging your life around the possibility of getting closer to the thing you want. The chase feels productive. That is why it is so addictive. Because unlike the loop, the chase gives you small rewards. A reply, a number going up, a glance, a sign, a result, a little proof that maybe you are not wasting your time. And those small rewards become dangerous. Because the brain does not need certainty to keep chasing. It only needs possibility. Possibility is enough to keep someone refreshing, waiting, training, watching, comparing, trying harder. At this level, obsession often gets mistaken for dedication. People may even admire it. They might say you are committed, disciplined, passionate, locked in. And sometimes they are right. But there is a difference between dedication and obsession. Dedication still leaves room for your life. Obsession starts replacing it. You begin to measure the entire day by one thing. Did they respond? Did I improve? Did I win? Did I move closer? Did I get proof? And if the answer is no, the day feels wasted. That is how the chase traps you. It makes everything else feel smaller, until only the target feels real. Level 4, the sacrifice. This is where obsession begins to collect payment. At first, the sacrifices are small. A little sleep, a little peace, a little time, a few ignored messages, a few unfinished tasks, a few moments where you are physically present, but mentally somewhere else. You tell yourself it is temporary, just until you get the answer, just until you reach the goal, just until they notice, just until you feel in control again. But obsession rarely asks for everything at once. It asks for pieces. And because each piece seems small, you keep giving. You give it your mornings, then your nights, then your attention, then your patience, then your self-respect. And eventually, your life starts to narrow. Things you used to enjoy feel dull. People you used to care about feel distracting. Rest feels like laziness. Silence feels unbearable. Anything that does not feed the obsession starts to feel like a waste of time. This is one of the clearest signs that something has changed. A healthy desire adds energy to your life. An obsession drains energy from everything else. And still, you defend it. Because at level 4, walking away feels more painful than continuing. You have already given too much. You have already invested too much. You have already built too much of your identity around it. So instead of stopping, you sacrifice more. Not because it is working, but because stopping would force you to face how much it has already taken. Level 5, the distortion. At level 5, obsession begins to bend reality. You no longer see things as they are. You see them through the obsession. A delayed reply becomes rejection. A small success becomes destiny. A coincidence becomes a sign. A setback becomes a personal attack. A stranger's life becomes proof that you are behind. The mind starts filtering the world, keeping what feeds the obsession, ignoring what challenges it. This is where people begin to create stories. They tell themselves they know what someone is thinking. They know what is meant to happen. They know they are close. They know they cannot stop now. And the more intense the obsession becomes, the more convincing the story feels. That is the frightening part. Distortion does not always feel like confusion. Sometimes it feels like clarity. You feel certain. You feel chosen. You feel wronged. You feel like nobody else understands because nobody else can see what you see. But that certainty can become a prison. Because once the mind decides what it wants to believe, it starts turning everything into evidence. If they ignore you, it means they care, but are hiding it. If you fail, it means the world is testing you. If you feel exhausted, it means you need to push harder. If people warn you, it means they are trying to hold you back. At this level, obsession does not just control your attention, it controls your interpretation of reality. And once that happens, it becomes much harder to escape. Because you are no longer fighting the obsession. You are living inside the story it created. Level 6, the possession. At level 6, the obsession is no longer something you have. It is something that has you. You may still look normal from the outside. You may still go to work, still answer messages, still smile when people expect you to. But inside, your world has become organized around one thing. One person, one outcome, one fear, one version of yourself that you believe you must become. This is the level where freedom quietly disappears. You are not choosing anymore. You are reacting. Reacting to urges, reacting to anxiety, reacting to imagined futures, reacting to the fear of losing something you may not even have. And the obsession begins speaking in your voice. It tells you to check again, try again, prove yourself again, explain again, compare again, remember again. It tells you that peace can wait, that your health can wait, that your dignity can wait, that everything can wait until you finally get what you want. But there is a cruel trick at this level. Even when you get something, it is not enough. The reply is not enough. The achievement is not enough. The attention is not enough. The proof is not enough. Because obsession does not actually know how to be satisfied. It only knows how to move the finish line. So the closer you get, the more afraid you become of losing it. And the more afraid you become, the tighter the obsession holds. That is why level 6 can feel so desperate. You are chasing relief, not happiness. You are trying to quiet a voice that keeps getting louder. And by now, the obsession has learned your weaknesses. It knows what you fear. It knows what you crave. It knows exactly what to say to keep you coming back. Level 7. The collapse. This is the level obsession never shows you at the beginning. The part after the chase, after the sacrifice, after the story falls apart. Sometimes the collapse happens because you lose the thing you wanted. Sometimes it happens because you finally get it and realize it did not save you. Sometimes it happens quietly. You wake up one day and notice how much of yourself has disappeared. The friendships you neglected, the peace you traded, the time you cannot get back, the person you became while trying to reach something else. This is the final danger of obsession. It convinces you that everything will make sense once you arrive, once they choose you, once you prove them wrong, once you become successful, once you look perfect, once you win. But obsession does not end by giving you peace. It ends by showing you the cost. And that cost is often identity. Because at some point, you have to ask yourself a painful question. Who am I without this? Who am I if I stop chasing? Who am I if this person, this goal, this fantasy, this pain is no longer the center of my life? That question can feel terrifying. Because obsession gives structure, it gives direction, it gives a reason to wake up, even when that reason is hurting you. Letting go can feel like losing meaning. But sometimes, letting go is not weakness. Sometimes, it is the first honest act of freedom. Because peace does not always arrive as victory. Sometimes peace arrives as the moment you stop negotiating with the thing that has been destroying you. The moment you stop calling anxiety love. Stop calling comparison ambition. Stop calling control commitment. Stop calling self-destruction discipline. And start admitting the truth that wanting something should not require losing yourself. Obsession begins with attention. Then it becomes repetition, then pursuit, then sacrifice, then distortion, then possession, and finally, collapse. But the earlier you recognize it, the more of yourself you can still save. Because the goal is not to stop caring. It is to stop worshiping one thing so deeply that the rest of your life disappears. Desire can guide you. Love can open you. Ambition can build you. But obsession narrows you. It turns the world into a tunnel. And at the end of that tunnel, there's often no grand reward. Only the realization that you are never chasing the thing itself. You were chasing the feeling you thought it would give you. Control, worth, safety, validation, escape. And maybe the real way out is not to finally get the obsession. Maybe the real way out is to understand what it was trying to replace. So ask yourself carefully, what is the thought you keep returning to? What is the thing you keep feeding, even when it leaves you empty? And if it disappeared tomorrow, would you still know who you are? Because that is where obsession reveals itself. Not in how badly you want something, but in how little of yourself remains when you imagine letting it go. And if you want to understand another force that quietly controls human behavior, watch the next video on the 7 levels of fear